In 1783, the western coast of India was battered by monsoon winds, but the violent weather was the least threat at Velas Fort. Captain Arvind Rao arrived at these gates holding a highly unusual letter. It summoned him to the remote outpost, bearing a wax seal that belonged to a military commander who had already been executed for treason. Stepping inside, Arvind found a garrison paralyzed by paranoia. The soldiers stationed there flatly refused to speak to anyone once the sun went down. Instead of military discipline, the ranks were consumed by rumors of a chained spirit wandering the stone corridors, an apparition that supposedly left behind the heavy, distinct scent of burnt sandalwood. This environment stripped away all standard military protocol. Arvind was entirely isolated in a hostile, irrational space where logic had been replaced by suffocating fear. To bypass the terrified guards and find answers, Arvind descended into the pitch-black foundations beneath the fort's armory, eventually breaking into a concealed, forgotten chamber. This diagram illustrates exactly what he found on the chamber's main table: coastal defense maps, where critical vulnerabilities in the kingdom's defenses were meticulously plotted out with drops of dried blood. Beside the maps lay a detailed journal recording secret meetings and deliberate acts of sabotage against the crown. But the horrifying detail was the penmanship. The distinct, looping script on the weathered pages undeniably belonged to Arvind himself, yet he possessed absolutely zero memory of writing it or of committing any of the crimes recorded there. Arvind was now trapped in a struggle against his own hand, forced to disprove a conspiracy that the physical evidence insisted he had personally led. Panic quickly gave way to a relentless obsession. Arvind spent his nights tearing through the fort, trying to understand how months of his own life had been erased. His deadlock broke when a figure appeared at the fort's edge, a woman completely obscured by a flowing veil, watching him through the storm. Without speaking a single word, she would turn and walk away, leading Arvind away from patrolled corridors, down into a sprawling network of buried, uncharted passages. The official blueprints were useless. To uncover the conspiracy, he navigated physical blind spots outside documented history. These subterranean tunnels led to a hidden apothecary's workspace, littered with empty jars and the lingering remnants of that burnt sandalwood scent. These chemical traces revealed the method behind the madness. Arvind had been systematically drugged with neurotoxins to strip away his memory and ensure his compliance. This timeline charts Arvind's military deployments over the past year. The gray segments represent periods where Arvind experienced severe memory blackouts. Now, mapping the dates from the treasonous journal, the acts of sabotage align perfectly inside those periods of missing time. The person orchestrating this chemical hijacking was the very man who lured Arvind to Velas Fort, the supposedly deceased commander, operating from the shadows of his own false execution. Arvind cornered the puppeteer in the lowest depths of the fortress. In a brutal collision of steel, the lies unraveled, ending only when the commander collapsed, his blood spilling across the very maps of his betrayal. Killing the commander secured the kingdom's safety, but more importantly, it was the only way Arvind could violently reclaim control over his own mind and body. But almost immediately after the commander took his final breath, the physical reality of the fort began to dissolve. The hidden chamber where Arvind found the blood-stained maps and the damning journal was suddenly completely empty, covered only in years of undisturbed dust. The strangeness spread to the garrison above. Every soldier suffered a sudden collective amnesia. None of them recalled the scent of sandalwood, the secret passages, or the veiled woman. Arvind was left completely isolated. He knew with absolute certainty that he was innocent of treason, but he no longer had a single shred of physical evidence to prove it to anyone else. We are left with an unsolvable paradox. Was this a meticulously executed cover-up by unknown agents who swept the fort clean? Or does the stone architecture of Velas Fort itself decide which of its dark histories gets to survive? Without the maps, the journal, or the witnesses, Arvind's innocence technically never happened. It reveals an unsettling reality. Historical truth only exists for as long as the physical record is permitted to survive.